The American Legion believes every missing U.S. service member and POW deserves a full accounting. It's why we reserve an empty chair in their honor at all of our meetings. Our next guest leads the agency charged with providing that accounting and for identifying and repatriating remains of our fallen heroes. After retiring as an Air Force Major General with 34 years of service, he served as Deputy Director and later the Director of the Defense POW MIA Accounting. That is that agency, his current position. He holds a master's and bachelor's degree from Georgia Institute of Technology. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Kelly McKeague.
Good afternoon. National Commander Seehafer, National Adjutant Rowland, and of course, distinguished veterans of the American Legion, auxiliary members, and sons of the Legion. I'm deeply privileged to participate in your national convention, the 105th. Not only is this an opportunity to provide you an update on the POW MIA mission, but more importantly, it's a chance for me to thank you for steadfastly championing the POW MIA mission. Thank you for embodying the American Legion principal value of honor those who came before us by paying perpetual respect for all past military sacrifices to ensure they are never forgotten by new generations. Those who remain missing in action made the supreme sacrifice and must not be forgotten. So thank you for not doing so. Distinguished veterans, searching for, recovering, and identifying Americans missing from past wars is a sacred obligation. This mission is a sacred obligation because it involves your comrades in arms. And it's a moral imperative because they made the full measure of devotion, as President Lincoln described, for the nation we all love. And it's also moral imperative because their Gold Star families deserve to have them home. The words you see here are juxtaposed by the two photographs which I like showing. The one on the left shows the scope and scale of our excavation, here in this case, a mountainous battlefield in South Korea where we were searching for 4 missing soldiers from the Korean War. The photo on the right is what is afforded every single American we bring home, even if it's just a single tooth. Ladies and gentlemen, the POW MI mission is global because we go wherever an American fell in battle. And we do so since World War II. It's also generational because second and third generation family members still carry a void in life, both in heart and in mind. As you see here, the number of MIAs that we search for are staggering. And even if you only consider the 38,000 we estimate to be recoverable, it's still a daunting proposition. These numbers, together with the passage of time, are the enemies we battle today. These are also the difficult cases. But you should be heartened by the fact that this mission benefits from the strong cooperation of 46 partner nations. This very day, we have 243 people deployed in 9 countries: Vietnam, Laos, China, Papua New Guinea, England, France, Italy, and Poland. Tragically, there is one exception to that, and that is North Korea. And what's heart-wrenching about this is the fact that of the more than 7,400 missing from the Korean War, 5,300 lie in North Korea. Here in the US, the POW MIA mission generates strong support and interest. visibility in Congress and with the American public. And this is a direct result of the American Legion, your staunch advocacy at all levels, nationally and at the departments and posts. When you come to Washington, you tell your members of Congress how important this mission is to you, because again, these are your comrades in arms. I'd like next to share with you some mission updates which I think you will find interesting. First, the resources dedicated to this mission are in good shape, with the Department of Defense increasing our budget $40 million this year, and more importantly, locking it in for the next 5 years. Last year, 158 families benefited from the standpoint that their loved one, who they long sought to have answers on, they received the ultimate answer and now welcome their loved one home. Because we have been researching and investigating Vietnam War losses since the mid-1980s, it remains our top priority in terms of operations. Thankfully, we benefit from the strong cooperation of Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia, their government and their people, to enable us to do more research and send more teams to the field to excavate and dig. We partner with 115 private organizations consisting of universities like the University of New Orleans, as well as non-governmental organizations like the World War II Museum, who many of you visited the other day. Both organizations were instrumental in helping us 5 years ago find and recover the first Tuskegee Airman, Captain Lawrence Dixon from the Bronx, New York. It was New Orleans University anthropologists and World War II museum historians which allowed that great news to happen. Among the missing that we recover are more than 7,100 that are buried as unknowns in a U.S. cemetery. Technology back then, DNA did not exist. But thankfully today, because of that technology, we are able to disinter those unknowns for the purpose of identification. To date, 6 Medal of Honor recipients, formerly unknowns, buried in an unknown grave, are now home here in the United States. Distinguished veterans, many of you will recall the 55 boxes of remains that North Korea turned over in 2018. I came before you shortly thereafter to tell you that great news. From those boxes, so far, 93 Americans have been identified. But you will recall that the reason we had those boxes was because President Trump at the time, at a summit in Singapore, got the North Korean leader to sit down and commit to that endeavor. Sadly, we have not had communications with North Korea since 2019. We had high hopes, we had 2 face-to-face discussions, but it ended up not ending with, again, complete silence. Lastly, and I find this extraordinary, this past January, the People's Republic of China resumed cooperation. And what's interesting about China is the fact that it's the only country among the 46 where we have losses from 4 conflicts: World War II, Vietnam War, Cold War, and the Korean War. China approached the United States and said, despite the bilateral tension, we want to cooperate with you on this humanitarian effort. In January, we sent a team. They investigated 2 World War II sites. That team, 16 individuals, is there today excavating that site, and last week recovered possible human remains. Even better news is the fact that Next week, they will move to a northern province in China, right on the North Korean border, where they will investigate 4 Korean War air crash sites, again, with the cooperation of the Chinese Army and the Chinese people. Ladies and gentlemen, I mentioned that the number of MIAs are daunting, but there's so much more than just figures. Each has a unique story with memories that their families cherish, and more importantly, passed down through the generations. All of them, even if you never met the loved one, all of them longingly hope for answers. I want to share with you 2 such stories where identifications brought closure and 2 heroes are finally home. This is Army Private First Class Thomas Smith, who hailed from the tiny town of Grant, Michigan, population 900. In November 1949, he enlisted in the Army the day after he turned 17, the day after. And unfortunately, he was killed in one of the early battles of the Korean War. He was a combat engineer and volunteered to guard and protect a demolition position near Busan. He was last seen valiantly defending that position. His remains were turned over after the war, but they were unidentifiable along with 860 others. Other than the one set of remains buried at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier in Arlington, all of them were buried as an unknown in the National Cemetery in Honolulu. We are in the process of disinterring all of them and have identified 250 so far. Last year, in December, Private First Class Smith was one of those 250. This is what I find extraordinary. After a 32-mile journey from Grand Rapids Airport to his hometown of Grant, led by the Michigan State Patrol, escorted by your Legion riders, Private First Class Smith was interred June 29th, next to his parents and his siblings. The Legion is all about strengthening communities. And I can tell you that day, not just the community of Grant, Michigan, but the entire area came out en masse. First responders, veterans, school kids, all lined the streets with flags and signs, as you see here. I happen to see on this picture, it's too small for you, but one woman's sign said this appropriately: "We don't know them all, but we owe them all." Private First Class Smith was the second oldest of 5 and is survived by his sister Gloria, who is now 85, and his brother John, who is 81, and was 7 when his brother went missing. This is the last photo that John and Gloria have with them as a family. You see John there, along with Gloria, and Thomas being the tall big brother that you see there. Ladies and gentlemen, the Smith family has much to be thankful for and blessed that because this nation cared to not give up the search for their brother is why that family now has closure. This is Marine Corps Captain Ron Forrester, a Texan from Odessa and a Texas A&M graduate. He and his identical twin brother Don, who is now 77, are pictured here as young boys. Identical twins, as you can see. Captain Forrester was an A-6A bombardier navigator who was shot down over North Vietnam in 1972, right after Christmas. Over the years, multiple teams investigated, excavated Vietnamese ground in search of Captain Forrester and his pilot, Marine Captain Ralph Chipman. An unwavering commitment and a relentless perseverance led to the discovery last year of bone fragments, teeth, a dog tag, and a gas credit card, all of which were used to identify and account for Captains Chipman and Forrester. I love this photo in the middle. This is a memorial service in Texas this past spring. Speaking at the service, as you see here, is Captain Forrester's granddaughter, Lillian. And above her is a projection of a picture of her mother and young Lillian taken at the memorial marker. There were no remains at that marker where their father and grandfather was memorialized. That young mom was 2 years old at the time her father went missing. This is the last picture that she has of her father before he shipped off to Vietnam. As she got older, Kearney became more involved with the National League of Families, who designed the POW MIA bracelets you are all familiar with, and the iconic black and white flag. Kearney will bury her dad October 7th at Arlington National Cemetery. Because Private First Class Smith and Captain Forrester are identified and now home, the American Battle Monuments Commission will place a bronze rosette next to their names on the marble walls at that National Cemetery in Honolulu. Distinguished veterans, they are why this mission matters, and how your appreciation, support, and advocacy of the POW MIA mission enable us to perform this mission and, more importantly, provide answers to families like the Smiths and the Forresters. To your leaders who visit our laboratory every December when they come out there for POW, for Pearl Harbor Day. The commitment of the American Legion to this sacred mission is long and resolute. It's manifested in a number of ways. For your riders, your honor guards, and members who dutifully attend the military burials of returned service members, thank you. For flying the POW MIA flag over your departments and posts, thank you. To your national leaders like National Commander Seehafer, National Security Director Marquez, and Allison Stapleton, who visited with a DPAA team last November, deployed in Vietnam. And by the way, these trips that your leaders take are not a cakewalk. We put them to work. We put them to work to excavate and help and assist the teams. If you pull aside the National Commander this evening, I'm sure he'll want to share with you the extraordinary find of what happened the time they were there. Not only did they find a piece of an F-4 landing gear, but they also found human remains. You can imagine how extraordinary that is for our team members with this backbreaking, painstaking work to be able to discover remains. Commander, thank you very much again to you and your team for visiting. All of this is to say that when it comes to the POW MIA mission, the American Legion fulfills its value principle of a veteran is a veteran. In this case, these are veterans who have not come home. And through the awareness that you raise and the support you promote, you walk the walk for your comrades in arms who are still missing. Distinguished veterans, the fact that the United States of America vigorously pursues this mission is the right thing to do. Like you, when they entered the military, they signed a contract. But when they made the supreme sacrifice, they entered into a covenant. A contract is legally binding. A covenant is a spiritual agreement. A contract is an agreement between parties and can be broken. But a covenant is a pledge and a perpetual promise. A contract is signed. A covenant is sealed. Most importantly, A contract exchanges one good for another, but a covenant is giving oneself to the other. A symbol of this covenant is the iconic black and white POW MIA flag. It flies over federal facilities, your departments, your posts every single day. It represents and it communicates America's commitment, determination, and hopefulness. On the flag are the poignant words, "You are not forgotten." Ladies and gentlemen, I can assure you that the Department of Defense has not forgotten and will not forget. And thank you to the American Legion for also not forgetting and keeping the promise made to our unreturned veterans. May God bless our MIAs, their families, and this sacred mission. And may He always shed His grace upon each of you, the American Legion, and our great country. God bless you all.